La libéralisation du commerce et sa politique économique d'ajustement structurel ont globalisé la pauvreté et la faim dans le monde. La souveraineté alimentaire est le droit de chaque pays de maintenir et de développer sa propre capacité de produire son alimentation en respectant la diversité culturelle et agricole. Se nourrir est un droit humain de base. Nous avons le droit de produire notre propre alimentation sur notre propre territoire. Les femmes jouent un rôle central dans la souveraineté alimentaire des familles et des communautés.
Everyone must have access to safe, nutritious, and culturally appropriate food in sufficient quantity and quality to sustain a healthy life with full human dignity. Each nation should declare that access to food is a constitutional right.
La tierra le pertenece a quienes la trabajan. El derecho a la tierra debe estar libre de discriminación basada en género, religión, raza, clase social o ideología. Las familias campesinas, especialmente las mujeres, deben tener acceso a la tierra productiva y a los medios de producción. Se debe valorar económica y socialmente el trabajo de producción de alimentos y el cuidado de la tierra para motivar a la juventud a que permanezca en las comunidades rurales. Los gobiernos deben hacer inversiones a largo plazo de los recursos públicos para asegurar las infraestructuras rurales adaptadas.
Food sovereignty is protecting natural resources. Food sovereignty entails the sustainable care and use of natural resources, especially land, water, and seeds. Long-term sustainability demands a shift away from dependence on chemical inputs, on cash crop monocultures, and intensive industrialized production models. The patenting and commercialization of genetic resources by private companies must be prohibited. Farming communities have the right to freely use and protect the diverse genetic resources, including seeds, which have been developed by them throughout history. This is the basis of food sovereignty.
National agriculture policies must prioritize production for domestic consumption and food self-sufficiency. Food imports must not displace local production nor depress price. Peasants have the right to produce essential food staples for their countries and to control the marketing of their products. Food priced in domestic and international markets must be regulated and reflect the true cost of production that food.
Food sovereignty is undermined by multinational institutions and by speculative capital. We demand the regulation and taxation of speculative capital and a strictly enforced code of conduct for transnational corporations.
Paz social, condición de soberanía alimentaria. Todos tenemos el derecho a la libertad sin violencia. Los alimentos no deben ser utilizados como una arma. El incremento de los niveles de pobreza y marginalización en el campo, junto a la opresión creciente de minorías étnicas y pueblos indígenas, agravan las situaciones de injusticia y desesperación. El desplazamiento actual, la represión forzada y la represión a los campesinos no se puede tolerar.
Peasants and smallholder farmers must have direct input into formulating agricultural policies at all levels. The United Nations and related organizations will have to undergo a process of democratization to enable this to become a reality. Rural women and youth in particular must be granted direct and active decision-making on food and rural issues.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful video, which kind of gave us a very brief introduction to what food sovereignty is. Now, before we proceed, we would like to first go through a few reminders.
All right, thanks, Ranjini. First, we would like to inform everyone that this afternoon session will be recorded and live streamed. So please don't forget to mute your audio so our speakers can be heard as clearly as possible. And as a note,
in Southeast Asia, as you know that last year we had a pandemic COVID even until now, and we don't know when the pandemic finish or over. So we have but actually we are facing our main enemy is the capitalism and neoliberalism, as also mentioned in the good Mystica. So we have in Via Campesina, we have a slogan: "We feed our people, building the movement to change the world." But we also have challenges. Now in Southeast Asia, we have 677 million people, while we also have challenge how we can feed the people in terms of the number, and then also nutrition, and then stable and etc. This is our big challenge. As also there is a theory of population of by Malthus. So there is a threat from food production, because he said that food production cannot fulfill the need of food of the people. So this is our big challenge in Southeast Asia. And if we refer to the SOFI 2021, the state of food security and nutrition in the world, that the number of the undernourishment in our region is increased. So from 20 last year until now. So this is our challenge. So why the number of the hunger people is increased. So of course it's not only about the pandemic, but also about conflict. So also about economic schedule and downturn, climate variability and extreme, as we know that we have many natural disaster in our region, and also cost and affordability of healthy diets. So this the conclusion about the problem in our region, also in all of the world. Regarding conflict, we know that there are so many agrarian conflict, land grabbing, green grabbing, criminalization of peasant, in Southeast Asia, like AUKUS pack, Australia, English, United States pack. So it is also part of the threat in our region. And as you know, that tomorrow there will be ASEAN Summit, 26 and 28 October. They will discuss about the crisis in Myanmar, and then pandemic COVID, and also tension in Asia. For example, tension in South Asia Sea. So this part of the some problem and also problem in our region. It's also, as you know, there is a political crisis and humanity crisis in Myanmar. We can imagine how our comrade get a problem on this crisis. So they said to me that they want to get our solidarity to their struggle. Sorry. And actually, we have so many enemies in to as our challenge future on the future of food sovereignty. For example, neoliberalism, the liquidation, privatization, liberalization, and also green revolution with the state agreement under UPOV, TRIPS WTO, and also there are many some new GMO, and even engine drive. And then we also have many free market in our region, like WTO, CPTPP, FTA, AFTA, IEC, RCEP, ASEAN-China FTA, ASEAN Australia-New Zealand FTA, ASEAN-India FTA, ASEAN-Korea FTA, ASEAN-Hong Kong-China FTA, ASEAN-Japan, Japan SEPA, etc. And also we have a problem on agrarian reform. We're facing land market, land grabbing, supported by World Bank, ADB, and other international financial institution. And also climate regime, RIDD, climate smart culture, and also digitalization of agriculture, even infrastructure, and also finally COVID business. So COVID become the domain of to get profit by corporation. And finally also we have the outcome of the United Nations Food System Summit with the so many threats, so many danger for us. And then we also have a challenge about the future of food. No peasant, but there is still food. So remember when we are in action and demonstration, we always say no peasant, no food, no farmer, no food. But with the high technology, high food technology, they start to have a new the future food. So meat no longer require animal slaughter. Cows are no longer essential for me when we produce in the laboratorium. So this is also part of the our challenge to achieve food sovereignty. And then we also facing investment in the zone, infrastructure in Southeast Asia, highway, dam, and metropolitan city. Even we have now in Indonesia, we have the highways along the Java Island and also in Sumatra Island. So of course, there's also a potential dangers to achieve our food sovereignty, because in the other hand, there is no good in rural infrastructure, as also mentioned in the Mystica. So like so this investment infrastructure is like for a corporation. And then, of course, we still continue to struggle to achieve our food sovereignty in terms of the tool of production, land, water, and territory. So we struggle for agrarian reform, and we also struggle on scale of production, so medium agroecology, and mode of production agroecology, and scale of purchase post harvest, like small and medium state, and also mode of distribution into retail market. So we have a good experience during pandemic. So we provide food for our people, and also for urban people. So this is also the momentum of us as peasants to achieve food sovereignty during pandemic COVID, as the corporation also get difficulty in the providing food during pandemic. And we have a mode of energy use. So we fight to avoid global warming, the climate change. Why we use agroecology to overcome the problem of the climate change. Peace and cool the planet. So this is our slogan on the issue of climate change. And we also prepare some activities on the COP26 next month. And finally, we have the main production of the services. So we have to fight to struggle for public policy for business people, not public policy for corporation. And finally, and the main point is about the subject. So we prioritize peace and family farming, cooperative or peace and economy, as mentioned by Bang Henry Sargi and the Mystica. And don't forget, we have UN drop is our tool to achieve food sovereignty in the future, now and the future. And then in Campesina, we already produced a book to as our guidance for a member, the peace and agroecology for food sovereignty and Mother Earth. And this my presentation, Globalized Struggle, Globalized Hope. Thank you. Terima kasih.
Thank you so much for that very comprehensive presentation, Zainal. I forgot to add that Zainal has been very active in the push for the United Nations Declaration on the Rights to the Peasants and Other People Living in Rural Areas, or UN DROP.
Thank you, Zainal, for that very in-depth and comprehensive presentation. And I would just like to note that Zainal is from the Via Campesina International Coordinating Committee and has been actively pushed for the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Peasants and other people working on rural areas. So thank you, Zainal. And later we might be able to discuss further on that. But now we would like to call on Ms. Chuki.
No, Dogs, Chuki is not here. So Pramesh will give us an overview of what's been happening in South Asia. So,
okay.
Yeah. Pramesh is from the All Nepal Peasants Federation, and he is a youth peasant activist from Nepal, associated with the All Nepal Peasants Federation, or ANPFA, and FA. He is the present international coordinate. He's a member of the International Coordination Committee of the LVC South Asia. So, Pramesh, Comrade Pramesh.
Thank you.
Due to the neoliberal policies, we know that neoliberal states are completely against the peasantry, completely against the rural population, who are actually feeding the world, feeding the state. So that these challenges are making agriculture a different image of agriculture. So agriculture is not the choice of young generation, despite due to those challenges of climate crisis, challenges of access to resources, challenges of access to market, finance, and other challenges. Youths are facing challenge to engage in agriculture. That's why there is a rural exodus, there is migration. And I think it's not only the phenomena in South Asia, it's common in many other developing countries also. But we have to realize that without youth, there is no future of agriculture. We have seen the averages of farmers in many countries is increasing. We have seen that the population depending in agriculture or engaged in agriculture is decreasing. In that case, if youth are not engaged in agriculture, then there is no future of agriculture. That's why we have to address those challenges. We have to address those problems immediately for the future of the agriculture. In South Asia, many peasant organizations and movement are raising their voices with the slogan, with the banner of food sovereignty. And in Nepal, we have good example that we have been successful to constitutionalize food sovereignty as the fundamental right of the people. That is hope, but there are so many attempts to
lờiนะครับ.
네, 하지만 여전히
Dan kita telah melihat ya bahwa achievements ni aning ni
thuần chung và
when transportation was on halt, when world trade regime was almost paralyzed, when multinational corporation and industrial agriculture could not run, at that time it was people, it was peasants agriculture. It is peasants agriculture which is sustaining their lives. It is feeding the world. That's why we have to realize, the world has to realize that peasants agriculture feed the world. It is the sustainable way of practicing agriculture. It is climate friendly. It is biodiversity based, and it also help in income generation and livelihood of the peasant communities, which are now marginalized and mostly under poverty and hunger. That's why we have hope that the world has realized now there is no alternative of food sovereignty. There is no alternative of healthy, culturally appropriate food produced in a sustainable way. That is practicing agroecology, implementing food sovereignty. And we have few other hopes, like we have some international tools, UN drop, as Ainal said, United Nations Declaration on Rights of Peasants and other people working in rural area. That is important tool we have for our struggle to defend our right. So that is also one hope. We have to fight with this tool to ensure peasants' right towards achieving food sovereignty. And when we are having this UN Decade of Family Farming, starting from 2019 to 2028, we are having this UN Decade of Family Farming, and this is also the movement to highlight the importance of family farming, the small scale family farming, not the Bill Gates model or foundation model, company model, but the family farming means the peasants agriculture. It's I think important time to highlight this. So again, I will conclude with the saying that localized production, distribution, and market were key to feed the world during collective farming. Ensures the right to food of the people, and we have seen that this practice of cooperative and collective farming sustained during the crisis also. And the local exchanges, the agroecological model has no alternatives, because when transportation and the other system was on halt due to COVID-19, it was peasants agriculture who feed the world. So it's right time to talk about food sovereignty. It's right time to implement food sovereignty, even for the youth in agriculture. I think that's what I would like to share. Thank you.
losing interest with agriculture as a profession. So our hope now is on agroecology and in sustaining and revitalizing movements and international frameworks, as well as those policies that highlight the importance of small-scale food production. And it is the right time to talk now and implement food sovereignty, push for food sovereignty in global agriculture now more than ever. And again, thanks to Pramesh and Zainat for contextualizing and framing the rest of the discussions for this afternoon. So now we move on into the highlight of this event. In celebration of 25 years of food sovereignty, our next session will feature stories from the ground that defined the food sovereignty movement in the 3 regions. And we all know that in the context of COVID-19, there have been difficulties as communities endure the impacts and challenges brought by the quarantines, the lockdowns, and the virus itself. But nonetheless, the pandemic has also highlighted the importance of small food producers as well as the alternatives that food sovereignty presents. And this afternoon, we aim to hear about the initiatives, the stories, that sprung up despite the difficulties brought by the pandemic. And now we do have a colorful lineup of speakers, actually.
Indeed. And for this session, they will share with us several initiatives and actions in advancing food sovereignty by indigenous people, forest workers, peasant and land movements, fisher folk movements, and rural women. We will also have speakers representing the small food producing communities from the peace movement and climate movement and the youth. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Ranjini. And each speaker, I'm sorry, and we apologize in advance. No, but because we have a huge lineup today, we encourage all of our speakers to limit their inputs not to 6 minutes for us to give equal spaces for everyone. And we please also mute your audio while speakers are presenting. Can we invite Miss Ying Rohimin from Indonesia and the Kesatuan Nelayan Tradisional Indonesia KNTI organization of traditional fisher folks.
Suara saya terdengar bagus.
Can you hear me loud and clear, my friends?
Yes, we can. And for
Yes,
those, he'll be speaking. Yeah, you can use the interpretation channels to listen to him in your desired language. Thank you. Yeah, please go on, Mr. Rohimin.
Baik, terima kasih.
Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum, good afternoon. Greeting of prosperity, greeting of benevolence for everyone, respected all the members of Via Campesina and all peasants and fisher folks from all regions in Asia. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Iing Rohimin, the Secretary General of the KNTI.
Mohon maaf, bisa dilanjut?
Can I continue? I heard sounds.
Yes, please.
I just want to...
Sorry for the interruptions, though.
I would like to present some points. First, I would like to thank to all of you who attend our meeting. We can have dialogue, share stories, even though we are coming from different places, but with this technology, fortunately, we can gather. Second, we would like to greet all of you, greeting from Indonesian traditional fisher folks organization, especially from our head of organization, Mr. Reza Damanik, and also Bapak Dani Setiawan, and all the central committee. They send you huge warm greetings to all of you. And second, with this pandemic or COVID situation, it has given us lesson learned. It has given impacts, negative and positive. Positive impacts is, or are among others, we can still gather in this kind of rooms despite we are far one another. We can still conduct dialogue, share stories that is important accordingly based on our region stories. And ladies and gentlemen, my friends, KNTI during pandemic COVID-19, we have gathered reports from our organizations, branches, that our members that have been exposed by COVID-19 were only limited, only small amount of people. And there were also some people who demised. Why is it so? Because fisher folks are those who work on the ground, and they have received the best oxygen ever bestowed by the God. Based on their research, that the best oxygen is 5 centimeters above the sea surface, and every day we receive that as a fisher folk. Therefore, the impact of COVID-19 in relations with respiratory problems are very limited, even though there are numbers of infections, but we are still survived. And with this pandemic, COVID-19, it has posed impacts towards the livelihood of Indonesian traditional fisher folks. The price of the fish products are low, and also the marketing is also being hampered. And of course, it is a challenge. But amidst that situation, lots of things that we can do with breakthroughs. During the pandemic, KNTI has conducted a social action, sharing fish with our brothers and sisters who need food. We share fish to our brothers and sisters, those who are under self-isolation or to share their social solidarity. And next is about the food sovereignty for the traditional fisher folk. Food sovereignty is about independence. Independent, it means an easiness, a fulfillment of needs, and the guarantee of all rights attached to a livelihood or a life of a fisher folk. Therefore, Indonesian traditional fisher folks are still struggling to receive or to get it right from the state. In many sectors, there are lots of challenges and problems. Especially, we understand that Indonesia has right now the omnibus job creation law. It has also give impacts in relations to fisher folks' prosperity. In relations with prosperity of Indonesian fisher folks, traditional fisher folks, prosperity is our focus. We are still struggling, especially in the essence of the fulfillment of fisher folks' rights. Despite the government has issued laws on the protections of livelihood of fishers, but in reality, it's still far from implementations. Therefore, KNTI, for the past 2 years, we have done lots of things. First, we have advocated on the fishers' rights, especially their rights to go to the sea, because 70% of their needs of the fishers depends on the fossil fuel. The government provides subsidy, but the subsidy cannot be accessed by the nation of fisheries folks. That's why KNTI, together with its components, are working to advocate on this. In the past 2 or 3 days, in many parts in Indonesia, there were fossils scarcity. It, of course, creates a problems among the fishers. We are coordinating so that the government should take actions about the scarcity of the fuel in every fisher folks kampongs or villages. Other than that, the role of the fishers for food sovereignty, especially food sovereignty as a nutritional hero of the world, we have to understand 2 million fishers are there in Indonesia. 96% of them are traditional fishers. It means that the number of fishers are huge and their contributions are huge as well. But their rights, unfortunately, cannot be met or fulfilled, not let alone their prosperity. Apart from this fossil for the fuel, another challenge is the climate change. Climate change is a risk for the fishers. That wave, the flood in the fishers village, the change in the wave and the stream of the sea, and it's gonna create a problem. It's gonna be hard for us to catch the fish. What we do so far, what we have been doing, we have been operating independently by replanting mangrove and also other shore vegetation to protect our sea, our shore, our coast area against the climate change. Even in some areas, the members of KNTI, the coast and shore are green and they can be made into a tourism area. Indramayu, West Java is one of the examples, and other cities too, in coastal areas of Indonesia. So the climate change, when we work together to face it, to plant again with the local vegetations, mangrove, for example, of course, it will reduce the impacts. Besides that, to face the problem of the challenge of, around food sovereignty implementation, the men, when the men face obstacles, the role of women came. We have established a KNTI for Women organization. It's an organization, our umbrella organizations, to create and to embody the women solidarity, women fisher solidarity. There are so many things the women fishers have done. One of them is helping their male counterparts whenever they have economic hurdles. They come to the ground, go to the sea. They also take part in operation and fish processing and created handicraft, any efforts to kind of reduce the burden of their economy, household economy. The last thing that I want to say, to establish the economy in the coastal area and also traditional fishers, the KNTI has also encouraged the development of cooperatives across fishers villages. 15 cooperatives have been established, thanks God, across the fishers villages. They have worked independently to supply the needs of their members, to sell the fish products coming from the women, and also not other economic breakthrough that help to ease the burden of the people. Those are some stories that we can share with you. we hope that these shared problems and challenges, especially fisher folks around the world, let's be unite. Let's work together to face all of those challenges as mentioned by our lovely panelists, to face our nemesis and enemy with lots of challenges and obstacles in the futures and our challenges now. I believe that with our togetherness, whatever problem we have, all of those can be tackled, can be overcome. And I'm sure fishers, fisher folks, fisherwomen, fishermen, women peasant, men peasant can get their prosperity, can fulfill their rights. Thank you so much. Good afternoon and stay healthy, everyone.
Okay. Thank you for the in-depth presentation. And hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, dogs, we can hear you. Yeah.
All right, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. Sorry, there was some problems a while ago. And for sharing the stories for KNTI and the fisher folk communities in Indonesia. We see the challenges they face, particularly with the pandemic and the lack of government support in terms of subsidies for fisher folk, and how this pandemic actually uncovered these issues and highlighted the need to push for new policies or policy reforms that prioritize the rights of fisher folk. And KNTI has been doing this throughout the lockdown periods, and particularly engaging with government in reforming some policies in Indonesia. And up next, we go to our next speaker, also from the fisher folk sector, Mr. Herman Kumara from Sri Lanka, and the World Forum on Fisher Peoples, or WFFP. Mr. Herman, are you here?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you. Hello.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. While acknowledging what my comrade Rahmin of KNTI said, I would like to say, first of all, that the COVID pandemic did not create this problem, but it exposed the problem of this the system which
masalah-masalah yang ada dalam sistem, yaitu sistem agenda neoliberalisme yang ada.
It is really important that people gradually realizing the importance of having an alternative way of thinking. So we all experience, as we all know, the fishers are the main one of the main affected people in this process, because they are daily go to the sea and do their fishing activities, day-to-day fishing activities for sales, post-harvest practices, and also selling and all these things. So with that, with the lockdown, the whole process was disturbed and it was not allowed. And also, small-scale fishing is a family business, not necessarily big investors involved. It's only the small-scale people who engage their activities and their day-to-day livelihood. And also, it's not only livelihood, as it is also a kind of traditions, their customs and practices. They have been practicing for a long period of time. So when lockdown created, at the first phase, the fisher people, those who went to the sea daily, they were not allowed to go anymore. So there was no any income at the early stage, because government did not have any system to cater to the needs of the fisher people and go to the sea and do the fishing activities in the sea. So no transportation. So even though some people went to the sea with the police permits and so on, they were not allowed to. They were not a possible way to sell their fish. And at the same time, there is no any way of preservations, keeping them in ice or keeping them in storage facilities. Nothing was there. But of course, the deep sea fishing was allowed, and also it was promoted, and many facilities were given for them, while the small scale fishers were not really pay attention and not really attended their issues. Top of that, in one stage, maybe in the second wave of COVID, one of the fishing central markets were highlighted or projected as one of the places to create the cluster of COVID, so that people start not eating fish. So that caused serious damage to the fishing industry as a whole, because even though they can go to the sea, they cannot sell any fish at all because people are really highly reluctant to eat. So that was very big issue at that time. So we had to take a lot of efforts to make sure that these people are taking some to take some steps to convince people that fish not cause the damage, cause the infection to the people. So in that way, we had to do a lot of things among the communities to do that. The other thing is that, the fisher communities, they are depending on vegetables, fruits, rice, and anything that you need to buy from them, because they are not producers of those type of things. They don't depend on the market, and they need to buy from the grocery or supermarket or whatever that available in the area, and they were closed. So they were really had a hard time to find any basic needs, basic foods, rice, sugar, anything that you name that you cannot buy because it was closed. So so that they were really had a hard time. So we had to think how to cater to that need of the people. So we started discussing among our networks, thanks to this technology, because it was a bit introduced at that time, and Sumo's little Zoom and this type of technologies were there. So we were able to communicate among our groups, even though we were in a lockdown situation. So with that, we started dialogue as civil society groups and also the farmers, fishers groups together. Even people like Jaitis that you invite to speak on behalf of farmers here, they were also part of the dialogue in this process. And we had some very interesting dialogue among us. And we had some sort of interactions to find ways. And we started talking about how to have self-sufficient, small-scale food producing unit. So that's gave the understanding about how actually that was there in the beginning, even the farming fishing communities. But this was a very good opportunity for us to optimize, to use this opportunity, that because when people do not have any food in the market, they should produce their food. So that they started producing food through the small scale food producing unit. So in that, we were able to, because in our network, especially the NAPSO network in Sri Lanka, we are having some farmers organizations in various parts of in the country, and they have their practices about their seed banks, their fertilizer work, getting organic fertilizer and so on, so that we were able to get those seeds from those places, and we distributed. And actually, we were able to create around 1,800 small-scale food producer unit. And in that, we now having given like vegetables, fruits, herbals, spices, that type of various plants are given to the farm fishing communities to start their home gardens and prepare their own food. So at the same time, at the third wave, the government of Sri Lanka decided that, okay, they will they will ban the they will ban the chemical fertilizer imports from the outside. So that was a very good opportunity. So they banned 100% use of chemical fertilizer in Sri Lanka. So that that was a very good opportunity to use about the sustainable agriculture, agroecology practices, the various type of activities that we carried out among our farming and fishing communities to practice. So in that, we applied that in our places. So that was really a good opportunity for us to work together. And also, at the same time, because of the opportunity, we grabbed that opportunity and started some small-scale traditional seaweed cultivations, some small-scale fish cultivations, and so on in our area. So that was kind of a very good food source for our people to engage in. So those are the type of things that we engage. At the same time, the dialogue we began among the food producer groups, among like farmers and fishers and also milk farmers. So that created a very good understanding about the importance of having food sovereignty to achieve that. And under that, we began this dialogue to continue among various parts, because the government began to dialogue national fisheries policy, not the dialogue. Actually, they want to impose a fisheries policy in Sri Lanka, so that they want to promote the blue economy means, or blue economy practices in Sri Lanka, so that will create so many destruction, ecosystem destruction, and so on among the fishing community. So we were able to bring the dialogue among the fishing communities together with the other people in the society to highlight how these policies are being affected by the people. And in that, they promote aquaculture and infrastructure development, construction of port cities type of mega scale cities, and also mega metropolitan cities and so on, so which grab the land from the people. So we started, even though through the online manner, we started educating people and get them involved to having rising resistance or beginning protest against that. So through these processes, we use the BGSSF as one of the means of education tool and advocacy tool to educate people. So that was very good opportunity for us to bring all these matters, because people, when something happened on their head only, they understand certain things. So grassroots groups started thinking about how we overcome this situation. So that was one of the very important opportunity for us. And also promotion of sustainable agriculture and promotion of ecological agriculture is one of the key important aspects that we achieve through this process. At the same time, to achieve food sovereignty, we use as a means blue justice concept, blue justice practices to propagate, to discuss among the people. So that creates certain understanding among people. So how the people could engage to produce their own food and engage their own decision making to make their own techniques, technologies, how to practices traditional knowledge, traditional practices to promote, and also close communication, close contacts between consumer and producers, how to make sure that they are having understanding without having any exploitation among them, and also how to promote urban agriculture and also traditional wood producer practices among the fishing areas like seaweed culture and so on. So with that, we promoted traditional knowledge, the neglected food practices, some practices or methods that we used in the past, and to resist the destructive fishing practices among the fishing communities. So those are some of the very important learnings through this process, because people are really reluctant earlier because they have enough food in the market. If you have money, you can go and buy them, and they don't care about the poisonous food, or they don't care about the instant food. They just use them and some drinks. So all these matters at that time. But now, gradually, people have realized this global market or the global world is no more, because we can have connections to each other, but the exchanges are not really there. So that people were really coming up and work together, understand and learning about the policies and regularly communicating, because earlier we were not able to communicate like this. We were having maybe once in 2 months, one in 3 months people's gathering, but now regularly, daily, we are having our gatherings and exchanges and understanding and learnings and everything. So those are really important experiences, learning through this pandemic. Actually, one way, pandemic created a lot of tensions, a lot of difficulties, a lot of barriers on people, but people are overcoming them. So thank you very much. So giving this opportunity. So I hope that while when people come together, we will win and we will achieve food sovereignty. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much as well, Mr. Herman Kumara, for your sharing with us the background of issues faced by the fisher folk sector in Sri Lanka. So up next, we would like to call on Mr. Nim Chiang from Cambodia and the fishery community movement in Tonle Sap. Mr. Nim Chiang himself is a peasant, and he has been working with the fisheries community for the last 20 years. So without further ado, Mr. Nim Chiang.
My name is Nim Chiang. Is the fishery community counselor who living in the ground, but among province. In this afternoon, I am so happy.
발표를 할 수 있는 기회를 얻게 돼서
Through everyone across the globe through the Zoom call meeting. I am a peasant, or we can say I am the one who live in the remote area. Why I say like this? Because my hometown is living connect to the Tonle Sap River. I want to talk a little bit about Tonle Sap Lake. In the old day, Tonle Sap, it reached a lot of natural resources, especially the fishery resources. Because Tonle Sap is one of the biggest fresh lake, with having the river from 6 provinces to flow into the Tonle Sap Lake. Especially they receive the fresh water from the Mekong River, into it. Tonle Sap having a lot of advantage, especially the fresh water, bird, like snake, and also having a lot of like kind of animal, monkey, and many kind. People who live around this area, they can like fishing and also farming. In the rainy season or in the dry season, after farming, people are always going to fishing around Tonle Sap, especially finding those food in the flooded forest. And every like a rainy season, they can go to fishing annually. People are living happily because for Tonle Sap is the public resources which people can rely on. So meaning that everyone can go to fishing, collecting the natural resources there. But right now, if we think about the fishery resources, it was extremely declined. It's not just only the fishery resources, but the bird, bee, and many kinds of species of animal, like having a lot before it almost like extinct.
ការដាំឡើយបឹងទន្លេសាបបានផ្ដល់ផលត្រីក្នុងមួយឆ្នាំប្រជាពលរដ្ឋនៅក្នុងប្រទេសខ្មែរទទួលទានអាស្រ័យគ្រប់គ្រាន់ហើយនឹងនាំផលត្រីលក់ចេញទៅក្រៅប្រទេសថែមទៀត
of how say like a population can have enough fish to eat and also be able to export to other countries. But right now, the fishery resources was extremely declined. Even those like the small scale of fisher folk seemingly almost cannot find the fish for like making the fish paste. The reason because they are using the illegal fishing activity. There are a lot of factors with making the fishery resources decline, such as related with the climate change, with causing the temperature rise up, and
at the same time, some of the fishery activity, of course, has been done illegally as compared to those law enforced. Thereby, we learned that the current fish catch is increased significantly. Back to the food sectors, which is one of the important factors to sustain the health, well-being of the peasant and the community farmer. I think that this is very important to distribute countrywide or even to export overseas. The food available through our production, it is something produced by the peasant, by the small-scale farmers. Back to this is one of the rationale in which we are confronting currently, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic context. We learned that the peasant product, those of the paddy, rice, vegetables, are of low price, while the importing of the chemical input, the chemical fertilizer, those of the chemical insecticide, pesticide, as well as the fuel, the price is high, which making the difficulty. This is contribute to the high production cost for the peasant as well as. Well, some persons have to abandon their land or even sell their land, migrate to find other source of incomes. Therefore, in order for us to obtain, to ensure the healthy production contribute to the well-being, improving the living condition of our peasant farmer. Of course, it's based on the agroecology. You can see that the base farming practice, of course, can maintain the soil quality, the quality of the biodiversity. In contrast, if we are not performing our cultivation in line with the agroecology, while using the high input, chemical fertilizer, pesticide, we would of course confronting many challenges for our living condition. I do hereby request to the session, of course, your concerted effort, your spirit of solidarity to tackle with this matter. This is to identify the way out.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Nim. And I think we heard diverse voices from different water scapes, from lakes to the seas. Sorry, yeah. We heard very diverse voices from very diverse waterscapes, from the lakes to the seas. And the waterscapes, by definition, are commons. However, the neoliberal reforms by the various governments are trying to change that. And we heard from all three speakers about those kind of reforms, the changes, the reforms that are being brought in, giving preference to the blue economy, which will sideline the small fisher folk. And I think, as Harman said, these problems already existed. It is just that this COVID-19 pandemic has exposed these issues to the world. And the issue of one of the common issues that came through is also about the increasing cost of fishing, and the requirement of state subsidies. And although the states are kind of coming out of decreasing the subsidies and deprioritizing fisheries, but we also know that such a large section of the world population still depends on fishing, small-scale fishing, both for their own sustenance as well as contributing to the food securities of this widest section of people. And also, one of the very important points that came through are also the new experiences which the fisher people movement across the world, and especially in Asia, are also kind of taking up during this COVID. We heard from our speaker from Indonesia about how they are getting into mangroves cultivation to protect the shorelines, and also from Harman, how new collaborations are coming up with food producers, this new kind of solidarities which are also getting built. And as the climate talks are soon to commence, we also know the importance of or the highest the challenges that are the fisher people face due to these climate extreme events. So moving on from here, I think I'll just go back to one of our speakers who could not speak earlier, before we get into a short mystica after that. But first we will hear from Amu Mayer from Thailand. If we have him to speak from the indigenous peoples cluster. Is he here? He's from the Northern Peasants Federation. Yeah. Are you here? in 12th. Yeah. Yeah. He'll be speaking in Thai, and we have the interpretations. You can access the interpretations, and we would request you, Armu, to be very concise. Maybe you can take 6 minutes for your input. Thank you so much.
So good afternoon. I'm a indigenous person, and what I'm going to be exchanging with you is from my experience in working in the fight on the land conflict and the fighting against the law on national park. And so I belong to the community as well as an activist. And the first thing I want to exchange
좀 이야기를 하고 싶습니다. 이 코로나 상황에서
말씀하신 거랑 방 COVID
gakasamot gakagrabe
បងប្អូនជនជាតិដើមភាគតិចនេះគឺ
ที่เราเห็นนะตอนนี้เนี่ยคืออธิปไตยทางอาหารเนี่ยคือพี่น้อง
is that right now on the issue of food sovereignty, our people still have insecure land tenure, but what we rely on is that is the most important thing is that the area where we live and farm is actually being harassed by the government. They're using the law to try to suppress us. And apart from the issue of food security, we have food security if we live in the area and we actually have some access that we can share with other friends. We have tried to gather the dry food and some rice so that we can send them over to help our peasants down in the south and also the urban poor in Bangkok. And we have sent sending a second load of rice to help people there. The problem is our indigenous peoples have a problem with registration to get assistance from the government. And so it's basically our rights are being constrained, and we feel that what we can do is trying to really work on our food sovereignty practice, and so that people can see that indigenous people communities are actually real food producers. But of course, there are costs in farming, and we face the same problem because the Thai government is trying to actually limit or control the production, and we don't get a fair price for our produce. So we need to fight for food sovereignty so that the government can see that we are real food producers. And instead of the government actually providing support to the capitalists, they should actually consider to make sure that we can sustain ourselves. So we have submitted a petition to the government about the government projects, because we do want the government to recognize us as food producers. And there are various organizations that join together on this issue. And also we want to claim our rights, and we believe that we should be able to win on this fight because we've got a number of us working together. Most importantly, we believe that even though we cannot earn income from producing food, but we still have sufficient resources that can sustain us, and also even to share with other peasants from the other region too. But we are living right now in a kind of being suppressed, a situation where we are being suppressed. So let's fight together. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Amwe. Sorry, did I pronounce it right? Thanks, Mr. Amwe from the NPF. No, and just to give the audiences an idea who he is. He is from the Northern Peasants Federation in Thailand, a collective people's organization from rural and forest communities in 9 provinces in northern Thailand that push for peasants' rights to agricultural land, equitable land ownership and distribution, and respect for human rights and community rights as well. And thank you for that presentation, Amwe, and it's good that you've managed to deliver it this afternoon. And just to recap some points, harassments and rights violations are actively being done against forest peoples in Thailand. And despite the pandemic that also exacerbates the hunger situation that's already being experienced by indigenous communities. And rights as well are being constrained by the shifts in land policies that enables wider corporate control and land grabbing in Thailand. And these policies have also affected local markets and for local food produced, and severely affecting as well food access and availability. There is also a glaring lack of production and social support from the Thai government, and since indigenous peoples are not recognized as actual food producers. And lastly, Mr. Amwe said that they have sufficient resources that they can sustain and share and develop collectively and together with other sectors. But however, they are under a lot of suppression right now, and they call on for greater solidarity and support. Thank you, Mr. Amwe. So with that, we proceed to a short break and a mistika to give our interpreters some breathing room. And we will resume after 5 minutes. And during that time, we request the tech people to play the second mistika from the Via Campesina.
Let's get it. Yeah, we in the heat of New Delhi with the farmers in the streets. My name is Young Daku, and a Daku is a thief. I'm stealing all the pain, the suffering, the grief, cause big ags killing farmers for mimosas on the beach. From roadies to tortillas, Louisiana to Japan. It's your bread or your feed, and big ags got a plan. Pennies for the farmers and poison on your plate. Round up, keep rounding up the slaves. Let me give you some context and some history. Farmers growing crops in outright misery, harvesting suicides. Attention please, they're coming for your land, your laws and your countries. I'm talking about an awful plot to rob the crop jobs, disorder, a rubber stamp to cover it all up. My brain waves going insane to maintain, poisoning the grain, selling the seeds of death strains. How you gonna bury the aftermath, Modi? The bodies, the bodies, the bodies in the bodies. The proof is in the pudding and the farmers in the capital. All your bills are bogus and you're grabbing all the capital. Agro-business is always so competitive, smiling they taught the senators, overseas piling skeletons. Only a bone to pick, turn the cheek, now we gonna knock you out. So follow this, the motive is to knock you out. You want the profit up, we walking out, remember now. Oh, all tragedy, the corpse is found, it happened how? Union Carbide and its toxic cloud, 1 million permanent, he disabled and many thousands down. Sanu nahi javange, I'm not Jordan. in the present is the burdened MSP, the setting of the prices and the owner of the seeds. The farmer's gonna die, then where you gonna feed? And everybody's breathing through the burden of your greed. You own the marketplaces and you own the granary, financing gene drives, aiding biopiracy. Mr. Gates has bought the planet, so what else does he please? Farms without farmers, automation is your key. America, all hail the big ag progenitor. How you gonna save the farmers when you are a predator? Remember this, how they took the land by making settlements. The farmer signs the papers and the same man is a terrorist. A terrorist, we better bury him, make him irrelevant. The wheat is for the taking, harvested by putting lead in him to strangle it with middlemen and corporation. Contract rate and malnutrition, ammunition, blame religion. Better sell your lands and quit. All of it together makes you reminiscent of the British growing opium while famine's killing millions. Politics, how will they compete is just irrelevant. Monopolize the capital, then selling it and storing it. I'm a little redneck and the devil is a celibate with billions in embezzlement. His pictures on the television, waving fists, sending kids of farmers to fight battles in every border area and evil war from martyrdom. Look at this, come on in, people coming double in. Farmers live strong within, take your bills and let them rip. Double profits, double wins, double crops, GM crops, seed stocks, GMO, God move, over stop. Green revolution in low resolution, they're producing revenue to benefit the very few. Monsanto, Pepsi, Cola, Cargill, Donny and Ambani, opiating populations, burning forests, global warming. Thousands block the capitalists, hundreds dead and hundreds more are pouring in. You knew this, can't Google this, move a bit. I just wanna let you know how I feel, this is real, come and see. New Delhi farmers giving this for free. I just wanna let you know how I feel, this is real, come and see. New Delhi farmers giving love for free. Get big or get out.
Wow.
Wow, that was great. Yeah,
Get big or get out.
that was a great video, and thank you for the artist also who have done this rap. And I think must be from India because it showed shots of the Indian farmers' protest. So thank you so much for that video, and to Via Campesina who kind of facilitated this video for us. Now moving on, we have the next set of speakers who will be speaking from the cluster of rural women. First of them, we would like to call Suk Kyung Soo from Korea and a Korean Women Peasants Association, or KWPA. So Ms. Suk, can we ask you to come and speak? And maybe another request to all speakers, following speakers, is to just stick by the time, maybe.
서숙경 대표자님께서 준비가 되시면 아직
화면 공유해야 되거든요.
The interpreters that we have only till for 3 hours. Beyond that might be a difficulty for interpreters also. So let's welcome Ms. Suk. Thank you.
안녕하십니까.
Hello, everyone. This is KWPA representing 서숙경. Nice to meet you all. Today, I'd like to share about the feminism and food sovereignty. Firstly, I want to share something about food sovereignty movement that we are performing in KWPA and the pandemic situation in Korea.
한국은 지금
in Korea,
코로나 상황이 계속 지금 진행이 되고 있고요.
Pretty much in lockdown still. Social distancing and continuously doing the online schooling for kids. And on top of that, we have all the floods and droughts due to the climate change, and some weather issues, all coming together to give the hardship for the peasants. Also, the price level of the vegetables and grains are low, decreasing, which is giving us hardships. In this situation, everyone has the opportunity to think about being outside, is how precious to be outside, and produce your own food can be the solution. And because of that awareness and realization, people decide to do more education in schools about how to grow food. And also with the COVID-19, there has been a lot of deliveries going on, which created lots of disposable waste. And this is one of our KWPA market picture that I showed you, which has no wrapping papers used. In these all these difficulties and obstacles, we still are actively working to be able to carry on doing our food sovereignty movement, which is seed house and opening a dialogue with the government to put some policies. And we do some vegetable boxes. This is one of the pictures that we share here is to keep our indigenous seeds with female peasants around the nations. We exchange these indigenous seeds between us, and we also expanded this dialogue. Once our country is reunited with North Korea, whether we could share these seeds with the North Korea. There were some female peasants who originally from North Korea who brought the seeds from North, and these has been continued to grow in South Korea and kept the seeds. And we also learned how South Asian countries have kept their seeds and how they run their seed banks. And we learn the skills and exchange the information where we could apply in Korea. So we made this center, which is seed house, where we grow food not just to eat, but to harvest its seeds. And we carry on this movement with the community, with one person who's in charge to carry on. And we invite people to this center to be able to show how we keep our indigenous seeds, and also how to grow them healthy. And we also let people to join the center, and we made this movement where one person keep one seeds. So everyone keeps like different seeds and carry on these seeds. We also give them certification.
다시 이제 어떤 지역의 거점 지역을 만들어서 씨앗을 보급하고 교육하고.
And also the seeds that individually kept like this needs to be all gathered in one place. And we opened this another center that is based on a regional center and made a booklets where which province is keeping what seeds, so that we can have like this seeds library. And between these centers, they share the information. And all these indigenous seeds are made to booklets by province. And to be able to record this, is also keeping the person, the history of the person who kept these seeds, or and to have the strength against the GMO seeds. And every year we update this so that we find the importance of recording our activities. And every year, when we harvest these seeds, we open this event called Indigenous Seeds Festival annually. And this includes people in the city, so that we can raise the awareness, not just in the countryside, the rural area, but to the cities. Yeah, we are trying to verify these events in different forms, in different regions, inside or outside. These pictures here, this is the Center for our Agroecology Education Training Center.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Ms. Sue, can you wind up in maybe half a second? Because it's already 10 minutes. Thank you.
네. 네. 예.
Yeah. In a
네,
minute, maybe you can
부탁드리겠습니다.
take another minute. Yeah. Thank you.
그러면 사진 중심으로 보도록 하겠습니다.
Yeah, I'll just quickly go through the pictures for within a minute. These are the pictures in our agroecology center. We also go to different schools to deliver the education, deliver the trainings, and also educate the young school peers. And also, this is the open event for whole wide nations, where people just pay pay $10 to be able to get the indigenous seeds delivered to their house. And they also revive the traditional food out of these food ingredients. The most important parts that from the movement what we do is to be able to do all these activities and business that we need the support from government policies. We're putting up some policies that supports our activities, not in the regional level, but the national level. And also, we participate the protests for go against neoliberalism and also go against the GMO. On the 17th of November this year, we are going to open the feminist pageant movement that we will open this protests and press conference on this next month, about 2 weeks time. These are how we carry on our food sovereignty. Lastly, the food sovereignty for us is most important to change our way to agriculture and to change the relationship between the farmers and consumers. And this is how our pageant to be able to do the contribution towards the nature and towards our nations. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Ms. Suk, for sharing with us KWPA's initiatives and campaigns, especially during the pandemic. But just quickly, up next, we would like to invite Ms. Chuswi Olakji from Thailand and the Southern Peasants Federation of Thailand, or SPFT. Specifically, the women take charge to ensure food security and lead the organization's agriculture cooperative to guarantee fair management of production materials among women and other people from the community. Ms. Lucy, you have the floor. Thank you.
Southern Peasant Federation has been fighting on the land rights. We want to push and advocate for arable land. SPFT have started the food sovereignty campaign from the start of our operation. When we can access the land that we have occupied, SPFT separated the land into 6 categories. First, for housing and family farming for 10 rai, which is about 4 acres, community zone, grazing areas, and also communities farms. Whenever people can access the land, we are going to maximize the land use in order to maximize the production, prosperities, as well as food diversity. SPFT would like to change from monoculture to agroecologies and ensures diversities of the ecologies. SPFT recognize that the current social situation during the pandemic have tremendous impact from the people as well as the people in our community in order to balance between the livelihood of people in the communities as well as to mitigate the impact from the COVID. We have the forest farm plantation in our community in order to maintain moisture in the area and also maintain water resources and good environment in the community. This will also reduce the use of pesticides and herbicide in the community during the past 4 and 5 years. We can see more earthworms, we can see more varieties of bugs, for example, crickets, birds, and other local animal, which signify that our practice can rebalance the ecosystem and we have more biodiversities. We also grow herbs in our communities for years, and that can be used during the pandemic despite we have never expected before. When the pandemic hit, we have these herbs and we have this opportunity to heal people, especially the member in our community. The community has been using existing herbs in the communities in order to provide herbal medicine in the communities, and we also share our herbal medicine within the community as well as food plants that have medicinal benefit. We also have medicinal plant to share with the ethnic Karen in Bangkok communities as well as food exchange to the urban poor in the 4 region slum network in cities. Agroecology and arable land can also provide security during the pandemic. For example, cutting their household income during the pandemic. During the COVID crisis, people in city have suffered tremendous effects. Many people decided to move to their provincial or rural home in the south, in Phuket province or in Samui district, which used to be a tourism destination. We have our relatives to decided to return to our community. We embrace the return from cities. So this make people realize that whenever they have access to land, it can also help absorb the shock from the economic shock, despite they are not workers, but they can rely on varieties of food based on the diverse food plants and food sources in the community. And despite during the lockdown, one people from the communities can also purchase goods from the community. Living as a community can also reduce the risk from the pandemic because we can also reduce traveling and exposure to market or to grocery in order to prevent or reduce infection. We can also close the community from outsider to prevent the spread and infection because we can rely on the community's resources. Currently, the community is having an isolation cabin or isolation hut outside the communities so that our family members or extended family members who decided to return to the communities can isolate themselves in the isolation cabin. But the negative impact is we cannot sell our products in Koh Samui, in cities, or in Phuket province, which is a tourist destination. We recognize that this is quite problematic, so we try to create the market nearby our community so that community members can sell their produce, because we can produce more than we can consume in the communities, and we need to access to the market. These are the challenges during the pandemic. We also distribute personal protective equipment, the masks, the thermometers, as well as the hand sanitizer to different communities in our network, in Klong Sai community. And of course, in the morning, we have morning briefings and morning exercises so that people can talk about the issue facing them. And also this morning briefing can also be an exercise session, as well as temperature check session. Everybody will have to wash their hand before the community briefing. This ensure sanitation for community member who attend the morning briefing. Other member in the family can also have that temperature check during the morning briefing meeting. Community also, SPFT also ensure food sovereignties in the communities, which is one of our main focus. We have the commons plantation for different vegetations. We have like at least 10 species of plant, and people can also rotate to use
Sorry to interrupt.
the
Miss
communal
Chusri,
plantation.
Can you maybe wind up in 1 minute more? Sindh, can you tell her 1 minute?
Yes, I will. In order to preserve seeds, we also preserve seeds in the community, despite we don't have the seed bank structures, but we rotate distributing free seed in the communities. We also campaign on CPTTP in order to preserve our indigenous seeds for the community, and also ensure that people can have access to safe and affordable food, which will not be available without CPTTP. Women in SPFT ensures the seed exchange and seed collection communities, and also ensure food safety for themselves, for the people in the community, and for the society at large. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Chusri from SPFT, and Ms. Soup as well from KWPA, for your insights and experiences in advancing women's rights and feminism as well within food sovereignty and land campaigns. And just to recap some points, women experience multiple burdens, especially during the pandemic, and ensuring that communities do not go hungry. And with this, women across the region have been leading the establishment of local food markets. Rural women are also active in leading agroecology initiatives, including trainings on nature farming methods, collective farming, and other livelihoods that help balance the ecosystem. Women's movements have also led several policy dialogues with the government to increase the access to seeds and production support, including subsidies for small family farms, as well as seed saving initiatives, and also to raise awareness in the importance of agriculture in the context of the pandemic and in sustaining the right to food, including food access and availability, by encouraging the public to support local family farms and by engaging community markets. All right, we now move to our next lineup, featuring some of the representatives from small food producers. And firstly, we would like to invite Tariq Mahmood from Pakistan and the Pakistan Kisan Rabita Committee, the PKRC. our speaker is a small farmer himself and a food crops producer. He is working with local farmers, no? Local farmers organization named Sawera Foundation in South Punjab. He's one of the founding members of PKRC and a member of the advisory board of the Pakistan Peasants Association. So without further ado, Mr. Tariq Mahmood.
शुक्रिया दोस्तों, क्या आप मुझे
Thank
सुन
you.
रहे हैं?
Thank you, friends. Are you able to listen to me?
Yes, sir.
हाँ सुनाई दे रही है.
It's good afternoon to all friends.
पाकिस्तान में जो ज़राअत की सूरत हाल है उससे और फिर हम पेंडेमिक और उसके जो
I will start from issues of farmers and then take it to pandemic and now what the challenges they are facing. As you know, the Pakistan is an agricultural country. Majority of its population is based in rural areas. Around 60% population is associated with agriculture. The share of agriculture in GDP of Pakistan is 21%. And around 45% of the workforce is associated with farming and agricultural produce. The division of agricultural land in Pakistan is that 58% of farmers have less than 5 hectares. They own less than 5 hectares of land.
काबिल काश्त रकबे का 18% रकबा उनकी मिल्की है. 28% किसान वो हैं जिनके पास 5 एकड़ से ज्यादा की जमीन की मलकियत है और उनके पास जो है वो काबिल काश्त रकबे का 30% उनके पास.
They have around 30% of the agricultural land. 14% are those who are feudal lords and big landlords, and that accounts for 52% of the land. And one can just be aware that majority of the peasants are not having their own livelihood from the land, but many of them are associated small peasants who produce their livelihood. Rest of the big landlords and feudal lords are not peasants or involved in agricultural activities. They go for cash crops. Now coming to the pandemic and what impact it had on food producers. If I will say, it will not be wrong that fruit growers encountered a lot of challenges, and where the challenges were there before the pandemic also. The pandemic has just increased those challenges, those issues, those problems, those obstacles. So the small peasants who were already vulnerable encountered heightened problems. So if we witness the new heightened challenges is that of the poverty. They are quite poor. The, the poverty has increased among the poor peasants. Are you able to listen to me, friends?
हाँ हाँ सुनाई दे रही है. आप बोलने जाइए.
मैं बात कर रहा था किसानों फूड ग्रोअर्स को दरपेश
the issues that related to food sovereignty of the peasants is that pandemic increased their poverty. The poverty got elevated of these peasants because whatever they used to produce, these small peasants, the markets got closed in the urban areas, and the food chains also got closed, and the consumers didn't also have the money, and also the hoteliers and other food outlets also got closed. So whatever the peasant was producing, whether it was agricultural things or whether it was milk, so their consumerism got affected. So the income of the peasants was adversely impacted or closed down. So the peasants were faced with economic challenge. The money didn't come. And once the offices and lockdown came into force, those who from belonging to the working class, their salaries were also impacted. So their economy was also impacted. So their purchase power of purchasing food and other related items also went down. So they also stopped buying food. So food producer was indirectly impacted by the lockdown. And the third issue related to the same, because the markets got closed. So so now whatever was produced in the fields couldn't be transported to the urban areas or the markets. And so the consumers got diverted to the junk food, whatever was available in the markets, the junk food. So that also heightened and increased the problems that were baffling the peasants. So we are aware how the pandemic impacted on the global level. So every person was impacted universally. Even the first world countries got impacted, and the third world countries like Pakistan, whose economy is in doldrums, got much elevated, and it had to face much more problems. So the people and their basic amenities that the state was supposed to deliver to the common people was impacted. So the people had to baffle with numerous problems. Along with it, the food sovereignty, the once their produce was not there and the market chain was broken. So once the peasants came to bear this fact that the market was not available for their goods, so so we witnessed a kind of a rarity and a scarcity of food products in the market. And now we can witness the problems that the whole world is witnessing, that the edible vegetables, edible oils, as well as the things that we are supposed to eat, their prices have inflated to a very high level. The countries like Pakistan that are facing the geopolitical issues, that I can give an example, like we have Afghanistan in our neighborhood. So a lot of food products was smuggled to Afghanistan, and now the issues in Afghanistan are impacting Pakistan, because more than 3 million Afghan refugees are being hosted by Pakistan. And still we can see that number of Afghani refugees are migrating to Pakistan. So already there was a scarcity of food in Pakistan, but now it has again increased. And another big challenge that we are battling with and we are witnessing, because now the agriculture is not any more profitable for the peasants and farmers.
कॉमरेड
So the
तारिक
small peasants.
कॉमरेड तारिक अगर आप एक और मिनट लें और अपनी बात खत्म करें. Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
so now the people started migrating from the rural areas to the urban areas, and that created an increase in the population of the cities and urban areas, and the lands that were available for agriculture purposes or or growing vegetables were used for residential purposes. That increased the urbanization of the cities. But a few things also got good due to the pandemic, in which the people began to think about the various issues, like the barter system in some certain areas started becoming a norm once again. And many people have now started this barter system, particularly among the peasant community. Few people are exchanging food for milk and other such products. And also cooperative system that was earlier prevalent was once again reinforced and revived. So now the cooperative system of farming has been initiated in few places, and in many places the people are now trying to experiment with other sources of earning and economy. And also now there is passion for sustainable kind of farming. And now also food is being preserved. People are making efforts to preserve the food, like the vegetables and other such issues, other such foods, so that they can be utilized over a long period of time and overcome the shortage of food. And also the cropping pattern has changed to intercropping, so that more than one food is grown at one point of time. And also once people came to witness the pandemic, so and the climate change also and global warming, these all issues, to counter all these issues, the food producers, the farmers are moving towards sustainable farming, overcoming the artificial kind of pesticides and other such issues, and go paving way for the organic farming. So, so these are some of the good points and some of the challenges that I have kept before you for a food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Comrade Tariq, for that very brief but very succinct, overview of what is happening in Pakistan, and also the challenges because of the conflicts in the region. It's a very volatile situation. So thank you so much for that. Can I now request Anuka from Anuka De Silva from Monlar, Sri Lanka, to give us a brief understanding of what is happening in Sri Lanka. We are aware that a lot of things are happening in Sri Lanka. So Anuka,
yes, I hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, but my request is that you keep your input to maybe 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes, not beyond that.
Yeah,
Thank you so
it's
much.
enough.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is Anuka from Sri Lanka. I'm representing Movement for Land and Agriculture Reform. Mainly, I'm going to focus about what happening in the farmers' situation in Sri Lanka after the COVID. But I like to mention about the especially in Sri Lankan government banning all kind of agrochemicals after the April. That is the main reason issue in Sri Lanka now, because farmers are protesting. They asking about the fertilizer for the farming because its season is start. In Sri Lanka, have a 1.8 million farmer families there, but after the COVID, they have a huge issue about the market. That is the main case, because in Sri Lanka, a lot of farmers growing vegetables, but after the pandemic, government didn't bring any solution for making some like a mechanism to focus on market and also distribution. That is the main challenges farmers are facing, because very rural area, they cannot access to the transport with this pandemic. That is the main challenge. And also after this kind of a farmer didn't have any solution to face that kind of huge turning point. Would plan to do Manila, trying to mobilize the people to do agroecology. That is our alternative solution for the transforming the agriculture. Especially as a women farmer, I try to mobilize the women. Main thing to how to do agroecology and also the seed conservation, and we're trying to build a cooperative movement, because in the rural area we are facing huge crisis about the microfinance, especially if
Hello, Anuka. We can't hear you.
Hello, Anuka.
I think she has a bad connection,
Yeah.
internet
Yeah,
connection.
she's back.
yeah, I'm there. Are you
Okay,
hear me?
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now we can.
Yeah, are you hear me?
Yes, we can.
And
We
food
can, Anuka.
solution. Yeah.
Yes.
As a Manila, we are bringing the food sovereignty as a solution for the changing the whole chain, because we cannot say we need to change the marketing like a distribution, and we need to
Anuka, the connection I think is not working. Very sorry about that, but
Yep.
it's the connection is very poor. So Anuka, why don't you you can write very briefly in the chat.
Yeah.
Right? We can do that because we are not able to hear you at all, and I'm very sorry about that. Okay, so we will have to move on because we are just very running really out of time. But thank you all the speakers in this section, Comrade Tariq and Anuka. We couldn't hear from the Thailand representative, but I think one of the things that came out from what Anuka was talking about and what Comrade Tariq was also speaking was about this whole COVID situation coming up upon already an existing agrarian distress in the region, and how things have become really difficult and inequalities and poverty has increased. And giving examples from the region, they said that how things have not been working well for the peasantry and also the working people, working class, due to the scarcity of food prices rising. There have been a lot of urban migrations happening. Access to market is a huge challenge for the peasantry in this region. But we also see how the alternatives are working in terms of the increasing barter system coming into action again, exchanging of food, and talk about cooperatives. Cropping patterns are changing to account for food security. Multiple croppings are happening. Sorry, intercroppings are happening, and also this discussion about agroecology and mobilizations towards realizing agroecology are also happening. I think from here on, we move to the next speaker, who is from Bangladesh, Ghulam Sarovar. He's from the Bangladesh Agriculture Farm Labor Federation, or the BAFLF. He's actively engaged in the work of rights of the agricultural laborers and migrant workers in Bangladesh. Ghulam, we would like to invite you to speak, and we would request again to maybe limit yourselves to 5 minutes. I know this is brutal, but we are just like have no time, and so we would like to hear you, and welcome
Thank
Ghulam.
You. Thank you, Ranjani and Rafael, for this opportunity. Nice to meet you all. First of all, I want to share what was the scenario before the pandemic. Large-scale industrialized agriculture, increasing corporate control of food and agriculture, unfair, unhealthy, unsustainable food system create climate crisis as well as crisis in the agriculture sector, which has more manifested during the COVID-19 disaster. By undermining people's fundamental rights, by exploiting majority people, this existing failed system has created inequality. Thus, the livelihoods, health, and security of the entire farming communities, including women, workers, have been threatened and vandalized. The agriculture of Bangladesh heavily depends on climate. The negative impact of climate change and erratic climate behavior directly impact the sector. Climate disasters like cyclone, floods are regularly interpreting, especially the small scale farmers and agricultural workers of Bangladesh. Consequently, the people of agriculture communities have been suffering extreme vulnerability for this year. These are increase in livelihood insecurity, loss of land, loss of crops, malnutrition, unemployment, poverty, child labor, forced migration, and displacement, food, land, and water crisis. In the recent years, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, the agriculture sector is suffering hugely. As the job sector is suffering due to the COVID, it's also impact the agriculture sector. Around 1.7 million youths in Bangladesh are estimated to lost job in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and a rise in the unemployment rate will be more than double the last year's figure. The permanent impact of job loss is estimated to be around 6 million. It would affect approximately 24 million people. This is also a sign of reducing the number of job opportunity and the negative impact of COVID-19 on the economy of Bangladesh. COVID-19 also creates significant negative effect on health and safety of people, especially working class people, due to the public health system collapse. Moreover, COVID-19 pandemic has tremendously intensified their poverty and vulnerability. They have experienced more economic hardship and health crisis at this very difficult time of second wave of the pandemic. During 2020-2021, Bangladesh poverty rate raised to 30% amid the COVID pandemic, and the farmers of the country suffered a loss of over 560 billion Bangladeshi taka due to the COVID-19 shutdown. So now importance should be on protecting peasants and securing subsistence farming. For this, it is important to promote farmers' right to seed and empower the rural communities so that they can protect their own livelihood. Ensuring food sovereignty is the best alternative to the current agriculture policy in Bangladesh in the context of adaptation and resilience to climate change and resist corporate control of food and agriculture. Food sovereignty is the solution to address current crisis, because the struggle of food sovereignty is the struggle for protecting local seed, land, natural resources, and protecting environmental as well. Food sovereignty and sustainable agriculture consider livelihood as an integral component. Ecosystem approach to agriculture and food sovereignty is needed to include in the national policy and action plan to reduce climate change vulnerability over food sovereignty. So we need to organize collective local action, lobby and advocacy to make change the failed system to, for the fair and equitable local-based people-oriented development through strengthening the struggle of food sovereignty in benefiting the majority of population. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sorowar, for your insights. And well, just to recap some important points from the labor and migrant workers, no, there is an increase in corporate control in agriculture to secure the food needs in Bangladesh during the pandemic, and this is exacerbated by the shift to pro-corporate policies that deprioritize family farms, and this, along the challenges brought by the climate, forced migration and displacement. The agriculture sector suffered greatly, particularly with the youth, no, losing focus, or losing priority for agriculture as or farming as a profession. And hence it is important to push for the rights of small farmers, particularly to seed access and government support to build resilience to climate change, and as well as rebuilding livelihoods and ecosystems is an integral part, as Mr. Sorowar highlighted, for people's movements to move forward under the new normals. We will now proceed to Mr. Hendarman from Serikat Petani, Indonesia, to talk about the climate campaign and how climate actions complement and support movements that advance food sovereignty. Mr. Hendarman, are you here? Oke.
Baik, terima kasih.
Terima
kasih. Saya Hendarman dari Serikat Petani Indonesia. Saya berasal dari Provinsi Bengkulu, Sumatera, Kepulauan Sumatera, Indonesia. Dan saya bekerja di Serikat Petani Indonesia. Nah, saya coba menyampaikan bahwa laporan-laporan yang terjadi di Indonesia, salah satunya adalah bagaimana perubahan iklim ini menjadi persoalan yang memang sangat signifikan terjadi di tingkat petani, di mana petani khususnya masyarakat juga yang bekerja di pedesaan di atas tanah pertanian mereka tidak lagi kemudian bisa membaca alam dengan kearifan lokal mereka, bahwa kalau pola-pola pertanian mereka sebenarnya adalah bergantung pada perubahan alam, hari ini tidak ada lagi menjadi jaminan bahwa pertanian itu merujuk kepada kalender musim yang terjadi. Pada saat musim tanam bisa jadi kemudian terjadi kemarau panjang. Nah, yang ini juga berdampak pada sebenarnya hasil-hasil pertanian yang diharapkan oleh mereka. Kemudian seringkali terjadi misalnya perubahan yang secara drastis, penurunan suhu yang drastis, kemudian kemarau panjang terjadi, kemudian angin besar yang kemudian juga menyebabkan hutan-hutan di sekitar area pertanian yang mereka jaga juga terjadi pohon-pohon besar tumbang, rubuh, kemudian terjadi kebakaran hutan yang menjadi dilema persoalan kabut asap, yang ini juga dampak dari sebenarnya bagaimana fase-fase krisis iklim ini terjadi. Bagaimana sebelumnya bahwa bagaimana fase revolusi hijau didengungkan itu telah terjadi di tanah-tanah pertanian kita. Dan saat ini bagaimana kemudian fase yang perubahan iklim yang menjadi isu di dunia ini yang juga berdampak pada petani. Khususnya terjadi ketika tidak lagi bisa diprediksi iklim ini, maka kondisi petani secara umum mengalami penurunan produksi. Kemudian bisa saja petani secara umum berdampak pada turun penghasilan, kemudian yang berdampak pada rentetannya, turunannya, kemudian kesehatan keluarga petani juga menurun, kemudian meningkatnya harga pangan yang kemudian tidak mampu konsumen beli, sehingga nah petani yang hari ini di kondisi saya coba membuat beberapa hal ya, artinya setelah krisis revolusi hijau didengungkan, kemudian krisis iklim didengungkan, kemudian fase saat ini adalah dengan pandemi COVID ini adalah krisis kesehatan yang kemudian bisa saja terjadi pada gelombang besar krisis pangan dan kelaparan, kemiskinan yang terjadi di planet ini. Nah, ini yang sebenarnya disikapi oleh kita semua, bagaimana para petani di dunia ini yang bersatu dalam Via Campesina, mencari solusi-solusi, memberikan solusi-solusi dengan melakukan praktek-praktek pertanian agroekologi, kemudian memastikan alat produksi dengan perjuangan reforma agraria, kemudian bagaimana mendorong persoalan kedaulatan atas benih, atas pangan, dan atas air, dan atas sumber-sumber agraria yang lain. Nah, ini terus diperjuangkan oleh kita para petani yang ada di Indonesia. Nah, kemudian dampak pandemi ini sendiri bisa dilihat bahwa bagaimana para petani yang sudah tidak lagi mampu berproduksi karena jalur distribusi dan supply itu juga terhambat selama pandemi ini. Sehingga itu juga menjadi dampak bagi para petani yang bagaimana kemudian secara finansial mereka tidak mampu lagi membeli obat ketika mereka sakit, kemudian tidak juga mampu menyekolahkan anak mereka pada saat ini. Nah, ini sehingga terjadi kekacauan di masyarakat petani dan masyarakat konsumen di perkotaan khususnya. Bagaimana mereka tidak lagi bisa mengakses pangan-pangan sehat dari desa yang dikirimkan ke kota karena jalur distribusi terhambat, sehingga mereka mengkonsumsi makanan-makanan instan yang justru memang jauh dari kesehatan kita, dan ini banyak menyebabkan memperparah ya kondisi-kondisi selain memang krisis kesehatan melalui pandemi ini terjadi, dan juga membuat kondisi masyarakat juga menjadi kacau, khususnya di perkotaan. Banyaknya buruh-buruh yang kemudian di PHK, diberhentikan, yang kemudian menurunnya pendapatan mereka juga tidak bisa mengakses pangan-pangan yang diproduksi petani. Nah, bagaimana kemudian petani SPI kita itu mendorong anak-anak muda untuk melakukan pertanian agroekologi adalah sebagai jawaban, sebagai solusi dari krisis pandemi ini. yang paling mampu menghadapi krisis pada saat ini adalah para petani. Bagaimana mereka bisa memproduksi pangan, mereka produksi sendiri dan mulai kembali pada kearifan-kearifan lokal yang dihidupkan kembali. Bagaimana mereka melakukan pembenihan lokal untuk kemudian ditanam lagi, kemudian mereka berproduksi. Siklus ini dibangun kembali. Kemudian bagaimana para petani kita itu menjaga sumber-sumber agraria, sumber-sumber air, melindungi sumber-sumber air, kemudian bagaimana juga menjaga sumber-sumber produksi karbon dengan menanam pohon untuk menjadi hutan-hutan yang memang harus mereka jaga sebagai sumber-sumber resapan air. Selain itu juga akses terhadap tanaman-tanaman obat di dalam kawasan hutan yang selama ini menjadi sebuah kearifan lokal, banyak kemudian juga kembali hidup bagaimana menghadapi krisis ini. Sehingga menurut kami bahwa petani yang memproduksi pangan adalah orang-orang yang paling siap sebenarnya menghadapi krisis pandemi ini. Nah, itu yang terjadi, yang kita lihat sebenarnya. Walaupun kemudian kita harus takluk dan tunduk sebenarnya pada kondisi pandemi ini, pada COVID-19 ini, kita dipaksa harus tunduk pada pandemi ini, dan sehingga petani itu melakukan hal-hal yang memang bisa membantu masyarakat yang tidak mampu. Bagaimana kemudian para petani membagikan hasil-hasil panen mereka kepada masyarakat di kota, perkotaan, kemudian bagaimana juga petani juga mampu bertukar, barter dengan produksi nelayan, membeli juga produk nelayan, kemudian juga membagikan kepada anggota-anggota yang ada di petani yang ada di desa melalui koperasi-koperasi yang kita bangun, kemudian juga bagaimana mereka melakukan membangun pasar-pasar lokal dan tidak lagi berorientasi pada
Mr. Handeman, can I request you to wrap up in maybe a minute more, 1 minute more?
Oh, baik. Ada hal coba saya sampaikan lagi bahwa berkaitan dengan soal pangan, misalnya bagaimana kemudian ada praktek-praktek korporasi besar seperti di salah satu provinsi di Indonesia, di Jambi, bagaimana ada sebuah korporasi skala tingkat nasional itu atas nama menyelamatkan iklim, perusahaan itu kemudian melakukan kriminalisasi terhadap para petani, menggusur lahan mereka atas nama restorasi, malah mereka menanam sawit. Nah, ini kan menjadi sebuah hal yang sangat bertolak belakang dengan upaya-upaya kita mendinginkan bumi. Nah, bagaimana banyak korporasi besar yang kemudian mereka melakukan ekspansi ke Indonesia dan negara Asia lain dengan besar-besaran menanam sawit dan juga berlindung di balik restorasi. Mereka bicara restorasi dan mereka menanam sawit ternyata. Nah, ini yang menjadi tantangan-tantangan kita. Nah, agroekologi adalah sebuah jawaban sebenarnya bagi kondisi saat ini terjadi. Bagaimana agroekologi itu mampu menjawab semua persoalan-persoalan yang ada di saat pandemi ini, dan petani bisa memberi makan masyarakat sekitarnya dan juga masyarakat perkotaan yang hari ini mulai pandeminya mulai melandai, dan kita sudah bisa supply dan distribusi ke pasar-pasar lokal khususnya. Dan juga kita mendorong kawan-kawan muda dan pusat pendidikan kita, pusat pendidikan agroekologi kita dan pusat pembenihan kita juga melakukan pemulihan benih-benih lokal agar kita tidak lagi tergantung pada benih-benih pabrik, benih-benih yang diproduksi oleh perusahaan-perusahaan yang jelas tidak sehat, kemudian GMO, kemudian juga input kimia dan pestisida yang terjadi di tanah-tanah pertanian kita. Dan juga kita sedang melakukan kampanye besar dan mempraktekkan bagaimana kita membangun 1000 desa agroekologi dan 1000 desa koperasi. Bagaimana kemudian produk-produk pertanian itu, para petani kita itu bisa diakomodir di dalam koperasi, kemudian memang bisa terdistribusi kepada anggota-anggota kita yang ada di seluruh Indonesia. Dan salah satunya adalah benih padi yang kita coba muliakan, kita coba benihkan, itu SPI 20 namanya, benih padi SPI 20.
Mr. Handerman.
Yes, siap. Baik,
I'm
mungkin
so sorry, but we are actually absolutely out of time. Can I request you to end your input here?
baik, saya mengajak kepada kita semua, para pelaku penggiat dan aktivis petani hari ini, bagaimana kemudian kita melakukan perlawanan sebenarnya terhadap terhadap kondisi-kondisi saat ini, bagaimana kemudian kita mengglobalkan perjuangan kita, mengglobalkan harapan kita, karena yang harus kita wariskan pada anak cucu kita adalah pangan yang sehat, alat produksi yang mereka bisa lakukan, kemudian juga planet yang memang tidak tercemar sama sekali. Nah, mungkin itu dari saya, bagaimana ini bisa menjadi semangat buat kita, dan saya ucapkan terima kasih banyak kepada teman-teman memberikan waktu bagi saya. Salam petani Indonesia, Viva la Via Campesina. Terima kasih.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Henderman. Actually, your last point was really good. We should build more solidarities and globalize hope. And thank you actually for your stories and insights. And just a very short recap from your points. Climate change have posed multiple problems in small food production, particularly due to sudden changes in weather, such as extreme weather events, droughts, haze, and planting seasons have also shifted, and what used to be wet seasons are now dry. And this is made worse by the overdependence to chemical farming inputs and the green revolution technologies that only makes local farms more vulnerable to changes in the climate. Corporate capture as well on agriculture has also been more evident during the pandemic and the lockdowns, with land grabbing, displacement, and even criminalization of peasant movements in Indonesia. And with the various crises going on, such as the climate, the pandemic, we may face again another crisis, but now on food. And hence it is imperative that we push for alternatives such as agroecology and agrarian reform. And Mr. Henderman actually emphasized that peasants are one of the best responders during the pandemic when they established local markets to improve food access even to urban communities. And they now work towards the goal of reaching 1,000 agroecology villages across Indonesia. And with that, thank you, Mr. Henderman. Terima kasih. And now we go to our next story sharing. Ranjini?
No. Actually, actually, we have heard abundance of stories and accounts over this 3 hours. We have crossed 3 hours, but given the amount of technical glitches we also faced, I think we are going a little up above what the time was designated, and I sincerely apologize to the interpreters for this, but we are trying to wrap this up now. And for the lack of time, it will be very difficult for us to have a round of discussion. But what we can definitely have is this, because this session is being live streamed on Facebook. So we would request everyone to go there and post their comments if they have any. And we also will mail all our participants later, whoever has joined, about all the other ways that we can build this conversation together and take this discussion forward. Now, I would request. Yes.
Sorry, something came by the chat. Actually, Rimar Alonsagay of Mindanao Tribe People's Youth for Peace, or AKMK, is here with us. Can we still proceed with his presentation?
Yeah, of course. Sorry, I missed out on that chat. Rimar,
Okay.
welcome, and we would request you to keep your input for about 5 minutes, maybe.
Yeah,
I'm very
sure.
sorry about that.
Thank
That's
you.
fine. Okay, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
you are.
yes, we can hear you
Yes, you are.
clearly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll try to make it very brief presentations of the works of the Alyansa ng Kabatang Mindanao para sa Kapayapaan, or the Alliance of Mindanao Tribe People Youth for Peace. So basically, Mindanao, despite its abundance in culture and natural resources, it has also been placed by various on and off conflict, multifaceted and deep-rooted othering, like right to self-determination of the Moro and indigenous people, and ideological base of communist insurgency, as well as the rise of extremism and the power struggle between clans. Now, Duterte administration continued to intensify the business as usual framework anchored in the neoliberal system that only serves the interests of the foreign and national capitalists, while the poor communities in Mindanao remain at the margin and suffered from uneven and maldeveloped development, backward agrarian and debt situation. These conditions has been actually exacerbated by COVID pandemic, the suffering and further push of millions of population into poverty, and young people are no exception with that. So young people have a huge contribution in the economy, but remain uncertain with job security, access to health. So that's it. So 4.2 million, and majority of that is composed of young population. So COVID also have been disrupted the educational sector. It has exposed and sharpened the flaws of educational system. That the shift to digital platform also proves to be a huge challenge among young people, especially young people in the rural areas who don't have access to gadgets, to internet connections. In the present context, also the crisis has also tapped to existing social, economic, and political crisis in Mindanao. It showed the gap between the rich and perpetuated by the militaristic and unclear government response and restrictions on mobility and access to basic services. So Mindanao also has been vulnerable area by ecological crisis that brought thousands of displaced communities in the area. So peasants agriculture in Mindanao also faced with multiple predicaments that put in terms of controlling the land, seeds, and other resources that needed in the food production to drastic change in climate patterns and market vulnerability. Under Duterte also, it clearly undermines the support to food production, to the peasant agriculture, that adds to the collapse of local economy and suffering of the local producers due to the tied up export and import dependent of food trading. So it is also becoming a trend that most of the communities and youth from the urban areas and even rural areas centers have limited idea on the production of process of food being served on their tables at home, food canteens, restaurant, and food change. Of course, thanks to instant food and fast food restaurant, without having a chance to see how food is actually prepared, youth can now actually enjoy unlimited choices of unhealthy food, which food-related disease such as obesity, diabetes, and cancer. So young people in Mindanao are confronted with different challenges, impediment from participation in the governance, peace negotiation, and other forms of political and socio-economic aspect. So they are still subordinate in place at the margin by adult elites. So clearly, food so remain and absent to the Philippine system. The land, the seeds, and food production remain controlled and monopolized by the hands of landed elites and capitalists. Now, young people young people's well-being in conflict, poverty, and COVID situation. Mindanao is really deep concern. They have engulfed by various and post-conflict situations, facing circumstances that alter and shape their lives and prospects substantially. So AKMK, the Alliance of Tribe People Youth in Mindanao for Peace, as a convergence of grassroots youth organization and movements in Mindanao, have been working in different forms of struggle during pandemic. So we have communal farming by the IP in Mindanao. We have also Solidarity Kitchen, community pantry that helps the spirit of mutual solidarity among peoples and sectors. So we also have online promotion of organic products by our peasant movements and partners. So so beyond this, yeah, the young people of Mindanao should strive to end to such inequality and build an equal and equitable and democratic society. It also need to organize young people, especially young people in the rural, in the urban areas. It should also have an intersectional and intergenerational shuttles among peoples and sectors. It also need to push for an agricultural campaign that links with the struggle of the sectors and people, and also push for food sovereignty that will empower communities to control the food productions, land, and seeds, and also to engage young people in agricultural sectors. So that's it. The AKMK has been calling for the future of the youth is non-negotiable at all times. So if not us, then who? Then if not when, then that's always our call. So thank you very much, Via Campesina and Focus on the Global South, for inviting us.
Okay, thanks, Rimar. So now we have heard an abundance of stories and accounts, and as well as insights in examining the issues, the challenges, and also the successes on food sovereignty campaigns across the three regions. But the question is, how do we take stock on this diversity of experience towards strengthening solidarities and support between organizations at the regional, national, and local levels? But sadly, we now move towards concluding today's discussion. And we just leave you with those questions. And I'm sure that there would be a lot of opportunity for us to deepen our discussion towards this. And we would like to call on Ms. Bianca Martinez from Focus on the Global South to give us the final remarks for the afternoon. Bianca?
Yeah. Thank you, Tobbs. Thank you, Ranjini, and to all of our friends from the different parts of Asia who have shared their very insightful experiences in terms of advancing food sovereignty. So I've taken up the quite difficult task of closing this very rich discussion that we just had this afternoon. And so as we've said in the opening of the program, this regional dialogue was really organized to commemorate the 25th year of the food sovereignty movement by discussing the various challenges and successes in practicing and advancing food sovereignty. But as one of our colleagues in Focus had said in one discussion that we previously co-organized, it's difficult to be fully festive in our commemoration given that given the many challenges that small-scale food providers are currently facing. And we've heard in the discussion that we had today that many of these small-scale food providers and producers are bearing the brunt of the climate crisis, of land grabbing, of harassment and killing by authoritarian states and large corporations, of development aggression and the corporate capture of agriculture. And on top of all this, we have the disruptive impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. But while it's very much true that the challenges continue to hound the sectors and peoples that predominantly provide for the world's food needs, our conversation today has also shown that there are many successes to celebrate when it comes to advancing food sovereignty. And in particular, the accounts of our friends and allies from various grassroots communities have shown that it is peasant agriculture, agroecology, artisanal fishing, and various other practices of food sovereignty that have mainly provided for our food needs in the time of the pandemic, during which the global food supply chain has been severely disrupted. And what's common among these success stories is that is the great power that forging people-to-people solidarity and taking up space can create in terms of advancing and realizing human rights-based alternatives to the predominant food system that gives emphasis to narrow considerations such as the reduction of unit cost and increasing profit for large corporations. And the COVID-19 pandemic has further exposed the fragility and irrationality of the corporate-dominated global food systems. So we've seen in the stories that were shared and the insights that were shared by our speakers that the decades-long imposition of structural adjustments on poor countries in pursuit of the globalization of capitalist industrial agriculture has been the main culprit, because it has played an important role in completely, if not nearly decimating local, national, and regional food systems that used to provide most domestic production and consumption of food. And as a result, even long before the pandemic, millions of people around the world have already been systematically forced to depend upon international trade for their food and their livelihoods. And the global food supply chain has many, we've seen through the pandemic that it has many critical links or points of fragility that would make it highly vulnerable to disruption in the face of extreme events such as the current pandemic. So the problem essentially is really in the global food supply chain itself, but we can't expect its powerful proponents such as multilateral agencies, elite-dominated governments, foreign investors, and big businesses to give it up and to abandon this system, even as the pandemic has forced us to come face to face with its fragility and its irrationality. The denial and refusal by powerful actors is clear, for example, in the outcome of the recently held Food System Summit, which has been organized primarily by large corporations and philanthro-capitalist foundations that now dominate many sections of the United Nations. And various organizations and movements that have closely studied this summit have said that the agenda of this summit is essentially headed towards the digitalization of agriculture that will ultimately erase the important roles fulfilled by our small-scale food providers and replace them with new and intrusive technologies created and monopolized by big companies. The refusal of powerful actors to abandon the failed neoliberal food system is also clear in the declarations made by key leaders from various multilateral agencies, which recognize the root of the food crisis as that of mere export restrictions triggered by the pandemic. So they're saying that after all this is over, we can go back to normal or to business as usual, because they see all this as just a temporary glitch in the system. And they're also saying that in the meantime, there are ways we can adjust to this new normal. But we know for a fact that the crisis before us is no temporary glitch, but rather a manifestation of the unraveling of the entire corporate-dominated global food system, mired in its own contradictions and unsustainability. So as many of the speakers have said a while ago, there's no way forward but to push for food sovereignty. And this path makes more sense than going back to business as usual, because it would make us more resilient in the face of events that could disrupt the global food supply chain. So to this end, it's important to revitalize local, national, and international mass movements and forge cross-border, people-to-people solidarities that will highlight, on the one hand, the irreversible crisis of the old neoliberal paradigm, and on the other hand, advance in mainstream discourse and also the policy arena the urgent need to replace the old order with a new paradigm grounded on food sovereignty. And in that regard, we need to collectively assert and to advance the principles and policies that constitute and that promote food sovereignty, and reject those that aim to further embed corporate interests in our food systems. Of course, this is not to say that the food sovereignty paradigm is perfect. As various progressives have pointed out, there are still many questions as to how to fully realize it economically, politically, and in terms of technology. But what really fuels the need to push for food sovereignty at this particular moment is the unprecedented crisis we are facing today, which again has been engendered by the capitalist food system. And as with any new
Priyanka, we are just like over time. We have
Okay.
to.
Sorry.
Can you just wrap it up?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, and that's with any new form of organizing social relationships, the only way to really resolve the unanswered questions with food sovereignty is to push it through actual practice. And we know from experience that this has always opened various doors to many possibilities. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, Bianx, for the very detailed and comprehensive synthesis, and for closing our event today with such an inspiring remark. So there's no way forward than to push for food sovereignty. And again, we thank all of our speakers for today and all the participants as well, and the listeners from across the 3 regions and beyond.
And the interpreters, please.
Yes,
they've
of
done a
course.
great
We are
job.
coming. We are coming to that. We are coming to that. Don't worry, Kwan.
Yeah. And the interpreters as well who have worked in the background to make today's event a success. And as Ikwan says, no interpretation, no revolution. Right?
Yeah, we will also take this opportunity to invite everyone to join the next online discussion on the 28th of October. This discussion is on agrarian reform and the defense of land and territories. You can see the poster here. It's at 3:30 p.m. Bangkok time. And also we have another talk in the same series of 25 years of food sovereignty coming up in November, which will be on the WTO open up for discussion, but we'll take care of that in the following program. And talks.
Yeah, thanks, Ranjini, and my co-moderator for today. And yeah, for a very final note, please don't forget to leave some likes, or better yet, a heart emoji for the live stream of this event to show your support, and to visit the Via Campesina page to get more updates on the upcoming events until next month. No? And so that's it.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Just to end at the note, what talks decided that we'll end together was
So
that take care,
keep safe,
and as always,
globalize
the struggle, globalize
the hope.
So thank you, everyone, for
Thank you, everyone. So we're gonna play
being
the
with
last Mystica, no? Okay.
Bumi yang subur di Nusantara.
sapa, gotong royong, itulah ciri khas bangsanya. Anak-anak desa bermain ceria, muda-mudinya gagah perkasa. Anak-anak desa bermain ceria, muda-mudinya gagah perkasa. Negeri sorga tulistiwa, indah mempesona alam raya, burung berkicauan.
Beres, wartol dua bak, minangkana halaeun. Batina eta halaeun di. Hidup petani, hidup. Atuh nyanak.